How did you get on? The challenge was to move the navigation menu of this website to a server-side include, but if you look at each page, it's obvious that the top banner and then the following piece of artwork are also common to every page, so it makes sense to move them as a complete unit together with the navigation menu. So let's get to the code. I'm going to be working in the chapter 707_06 folder and then in the begin subfolder. And I'm going to begin by opening index.php. It's very important to work with a file that's at the top level of the site. That's because all of the links in the current site are document relative, so we need to start off at the top level. And then in the begin subfolder, I'm going to create a new folder for the include files, call that includes. And then we need to find the header and the following piece of artwork. Begins on line 12 and then goes all the way down to line 31. We need to cut all of that and then in the includes folder, create a new PHP file, call that header.php. We don't need the opening PHP tag, just paste all of the HTML in there. And we need to convert all of the links inside this include file to be relative to the site root. And that applies not only to page links, but also to images and any other assets that might be in the include file. Because we're working in a testing environment, the simple way to do this is to use a variable at the beginning of each link followed by a /. So on line 2, immediately before images, I'm going to use the PHP shortcut for echo and then a variable called site root. We'll need to define that in a moment. And then a / immediately after that closing PHP tag. Then I'm going to select the / and the PHP, copy it and paste it in front of every other link inside this include file. Then we need to save that. Go back to index.php and then we need to include our include file here. So we need a PHP block and then because we're including the navigation menu, it's vital to the site, so we need to use require and then we need a relative path to the includes folder and to header.php, which is inside there. Then scroll up to the top of the page and above the doc type declaration, create a PHP block and inside there we need to define site root. And in my setup it will be / introducing PHP / chapter 07 / 07_06 / begin. You don't need to use this technique if you're using a virtual host as your testing server, but setting up a virtual host is beyond the scope of this course. If you've got a virtual host, all you need to do is to create site root relative links, but I need to use this technique because we're not working in a virtual host. Then we need to copy the whole of that line and paste it into the other files. So that goes above the doc type there, also in venue. And we also need to do it in these two files that are in subfolders. And then inside each of these files, all we need to do is to find that header and the rotator div, select them and delete them and just replace them with a PHP block that requires that include file. And I'm currently in the schedule folder in index.php, so we're at a different level, so we need to have a relative path, begins with // then includes, then header.php, and I'll just copy that then with register That's also in a subfolder. So we find the header and the rotator div, and we replace that with our PHP block. Something seems to have gone wrong there, missed out the opening. There we go. And also with venue. Venue is at the top level, so this just needs to be directly linking to the includes folder, and just copy that, and that goes in artists.php in place of the header and the rotator div. So if we save all of those pages and go back to the browser and reload, there is the main page and artists, that's loading correctly. Schedule, also loading correctly. So all of our links are now working correctly, but the menu and the top banner and this piece of artwork are all coming from that one include file. Now, to save time, I won't go step by step through the process of moving all the other common features to server-side includes. You can inspect the code in the Chapter 7 07_06 end folder, but the one point that I want to make is the difficult part was this grid of thumbnail images. Here on register.php, it's slightly different from on the home page, because it's over here and the text that introduces it is different. Let's just go to the editing program. We can close all of those, and if we open the end folder, which is now complete, and we take a look at index.php, here we've got the featured artists, and that is the ID of the article, and the unordered list that all the images are in has the class of clearfix. But if we go to venue.php and find those featured artists, the actual article ID is artist list, and the unordered list is in a class called pixGrid. So what I did with that grid was I just moved the list items into an include file called artistpix.php. So if you open the includes folder, there's artistpix.php. It just contains the list items. But the other two bits of common elements that I moved were the coming to article and the footer, and they're just very simple. They're very straightforward. So that was my solution. The most important part of this challenge was to make sure that links to other pages and assets don't break by using links relative to the site root in the external files. If you use document relative links, they'll break if the external file is included in a parent file that's at a different level of the site hierarchy.